start.
Okay. What do you feel about the Republicans' issues on drugs and public housing?
Well, one of the most critical issues facing the country today is the issue of drug abuse. The reason for it is that it's an issue that could take away the next generation if we're not careful in how we handle it. And one of the areas that we're really losing the war on drugs today is in public housing. I think it's outrageous what's going on in public housing today. At my urging, my subcommittee, Employment and Housing of Government Operations, had a hearing in my district. We selected a site, a public housing area, the Winbrook Public Housing Development, and we took testimony from the residents, from experts, from the local police to see what was going on. But you didn't have to wait for the testimony to see what was going on. As you walked into the development, guess what you saw on the floor? Hundreds of vials, empty vials of crack with nice, colorful caps on them to attract the young kids. It's insidious what's going on in public housing today. And what really gets me is that the federal government is pouring in millions of dollars to rehabilitate and renovate public housing, yet HUD allocates no money to security. So here we have a situation where the most vulnerable people in our society, our young kids and our elderly people, are hostages in these garrisons called public housing. So I think a new approach has to be done. You may have heard recently that another committee that I sit in, or sit on, the Drug Abuse, Narcotics Abuse and Control Committee, we took testimony from a convicted felon, a drug dealer here in Washington, D.C. The individual was about 30 years of age, came in under very tight security, and told us what was going on right here in Washington, D.C. in public housing. And he painted a picture which I thought was just incredible. Incredible in the sense that how we're treating the people that need our services the most. He said that the welfare mothers in these public housing projects are coerced into making their apartments into crack houses. Or crack houses are places where people come to buy the stuff and maybe even linger. And he says sometimes they linger for a day or two and just use the place. Now, the way they get these welfare mothers to do it is they identify those who are already users. And they kind of give them the drugs on credit. They may give them some cash, or they may give them the actual stuff. And over a period of time, the mothers get so deeply in debt that they have no way out, and a deal is then cut. The drug dealer says, well, if you really want to wipe the slate clean, what we'd like you to do now is allow us to use your apartment. And that is going on countless numbers of times, not only here in Washington, D.C., but to hear it from the testimony all over the country. And we've got to be mindful of this. And another thing that bothers me, it's not just the welfare mother that's victimized here. There's a whole enterprise that goes on around the crack house, in this case the crack apartment. They then take young teenagers, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and what they do is they make them into spotters, and they pay them $50 a day sometimes, maybe more, so that if there's any police arriving, these young people will run upstairs and alert them. They then hire someone in the development that has a CB, and they know the police frequencies. And they monitor the police frequencies, and that person is paid maybe $100 or $200 a day. There's a lot of money in this. They then have what they call a pistol man. And that's someone that's probably a late teenager or someone in their 20s, and that individual is paid $200, $300, $400, $500 a day. And a question was put to the individual, the convicted felon who was there, kind of a naive question by one of the people on the panel, do they use the weapons? And the convicted felon said, what do you think they're getting paid for? So you've got a whole enterprise springing up in these public housing authorities, and it's just not one crack apartment or crack house. There are many of them throughout even one public housing authority, and that must be changed. Now, how do we change it? I think that with Republican values, in a sense that we want to get to the problem. We don't want to look at the symptoms of the problem. We want to get to the actual problem. I, for one, have proposed legislation. I've got a series of bills in, and variations of these bills have now been put in the omnibus drug bill that is being proposed by the Republican Party, because we as Republicans care about people. we want to be sure that when we spend money here, it's not just shoveling money at a problem, it's targeting the money in such a way that we're going to resolve the problem. And one of my bills is called the Public Housing Securities Force Act of 1988. And basically, that's a bill that would require HUD to allocate money either for private security forces within these public housing projects, and it's a good idea. Why? Because we're protecting a government investment. The head of the authority in White Plains said that within a week or two after they put up new doors, those doors are vandalized, broken. They have one door that's been replaced 3 times this year so far. Now, is that a way to invest government money? To put millions of dollars into renovation and have it vandalized? So we need some security. But it's more important than just the property, it's the people. We want security forces to be on the alert for drug traffickers, to protect those young kids and those elderly people who are literally hostages today in housing that is subsidized by the federal government. It's outrageous. It doesn't make any sense. And my bill would bring common sense to the situation. If it's not appropriate to fund a local securities force, my bill has a Part B. It says that you can work with the city or the town police and have the police department there commit on a full-time basis 1 or more police officers, and the federal government will then reimburse the local police department for that time. I kind of prefer the second alternative, and many do, because we feel that local police know how to interdict, how to handle the drug problem and deal with these drug pushers. But I would say that there should be a choice, and I'm hoping that this legislation gets wide dissemination and gets adopted. Another one of my bills is the Drug-Free Public Housing Act of 1988. And this bill does several things. Mainly, it provides better coordination for drug prevention programs through HUD. And what do I mean by that? Well, it seems to me that we should be looking around the country for what's working. And to the extent that a public housing development, and there are some that are dealing with this effectively, dealing with outside groups like Mothers Against Crack and other groups that are putting in what I call neighborhood crime watches within buildings. Don't forget, you may have a neighborhood which is horizontal like I do, and we have a neighborhood watch. But these public housing authorities are vertical neighborhoods, and a neighborhood watch can work there too. So what you need to do is you need to educate the young kids and educate the residents to be on the lookout for each other, to care about each other, and when they see something happening, to call the police, not to get involved themselves. In my own neighborhood, I started a neighborhood watch many years ago before I ran for Congress, and we told our neighbors, watch out for strange events, for strange automobiles, for strange people, strangers in the neighborhood. And when in doubt, call the police. That's what they're there for. Let them come and see what the situation is. So we need to deal with ideas like that. Another part of the bill would provide for better training by HUD of housing officials. Let's make these officials better able to deal with the kids and with the elderly people. Let's get them dealing with them on a people-to-people basis and turn peer pressure into a positive thing. Right now, the kids are being turned on because their friends are doing it. Let's turn them on to be the watchers for us and the police. I think there's hope in that. So I would hope that the omnibus drug bill containing these measures is passed, and I'm proud that the Republican Party is looking for creative ideas like this, and I'm proud to be a part of these ideas. Thank you very much.